Evan Wallace. Welcome to the journey, and I'm glad you were able to join us today. And this is probably one, as of right now, probably one of my guests that normally we have a lot of local people from Rockford. A couple weeks ago, we had a good friend of mine that actually lives in Florida now, and so then to have yourself on from Hannibal, Missouri. So welcome to the journey, and
Thanks for
let me
having me. Appreciate it.
no, not a problem. Let me just explain a little bit about what the journey's about. And the journey is just a show that um, basically just takes the story of ordinary people who may have a different time periods in their life, something that they may have struggled with, something that had caused them to have some type of kind of slip, or maybe they had some obstacle in their journey. And it's about how did they fail forward? How did they take that obstacle, persevere through that obstacle, and then on the other side, um, who they are now. And so that's essentially just the stories for inspiration and hope. And if we can do it, then maybe someone listening can also possibly persevere through their struggles or the obstacles that they have in their life. So welcome. So one of the things that I usually start individuals with, or start off, is just asking about what does Evan do for fun when he has an opportunity for fun. What do you do for fun?
So I'm really into writing, um, and music. I'm not very good at playing any instruments, but I try to sing a lot and listen to praise songs. And then on top of that, one of my weird hobbies, I like to extreme coupon, just like the
Okay.
TV show.
Okay.
You can imagine. I mean, as much as you can do in a small town with the few retailers we have, but it's just something that's fun for me, mess with the numbers, and kind of keeps me motivated.
Gotcha. Okay. So extreme coupon. You got to fill me in. I don't know much about that. What's extreme coupon? What explain if you give me like a shortened version of what does that mean?
All right. So basically, you get the items, you clip coupons from the paper and match them with ones from the store or ones from online to try to get the biggest discounts. For example, I went to my local CVS and got $400 of toilet paper, paper towels, shampoo, conditioner, anything you could think of, any household supplies, and I got it for under $50.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. So that was just a matter of collecting these different coupons, doing some research with that, finding out where they apply, and then going in and basically getting reimbursed for that, right?
Right, right. So it's a big money saver for my family, and then also one of my main motivations for doing it is any leftovers that we have that we might not need will be donated to local church groups that do shoebox missions.
Okay.
So those are usually personal supplies that are sent to countries like Haiti or the Dominican Republic or things like that.
Okay, very cool. All right. How'd you get into that? How did you get into the ultimate couponing? How did you get into that?
Well, I've always kind of been fascinated with money, and as soon as I got a job, you realize the power and the scarcity of that money,
Sure.
um, and so it was just a way for me to and my mom to have something fun to do. We were both kind of interested in it, and then it was a way for me to try to beat her savings. We
Okay.
kind of challenge each other. So
Gotcha. Okay. And then you said you write. What kind of writing do you do?
um, mainly poetry.
Okay.
Uh, and so I originally started just writing short stories and things like that. But I really found that that was my main way to cope with my emotions and the things I really couldn't get out verbally to make other people understand.
Okay. Okay. True. So how long ago, when did you start doing messing around with poetry and messing around with just kind of getting your thoughts down on paper, and then it like kind of work for you? When do you think that actually started for you?
I would say probably 2 years ago is when I started just writing and jotting down little ideas
Okay.
um, here and there. But I really didn't start taking it seriously until probably September, October of last year, um, and really getting some thoughts on paper. And it really helped me understand, uh, looking back at like the meaning behind the poems later, I mean, you get caught up in the emotions of the moment, but looking back when you're calm, and it really takes a whole new meaning. And it kind of helped me realize what pieces of my life I needed to work on and what were the feelings behind those.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And Evan, you're 20 right now, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So you basically got started with the idea or got introduced to the concept 17, 18 years old. And then when you were uh, 19 or so, turned 20 or right around that time, this is when you, about 9 months ago or so, is when you really kind of really took hold.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then you also said you're into music. And
I
what, and so do you play or just enjoy music, or what do you?
I really just enjoy music, all sorts. I'm not a huge country fan, but
Okay.
other than that, I'll listen to just about anything. I just There's a lot of songs out there that are uh, just easy to relate to. And I mean, any genre, they're dealing with the same struggles as the ordinary person, regardless of the money and the fame that comes with it. So it's a kind of another way to just escape.
So again, similar to what similar to what you were talking about earlier, it's the whole idea of the story, and so similar to you writing your own writings, either in poetry or your own stories, it's a way of getting out those thoughts and those feelings and kind of organizing them a little bit. You also are attracted to other artists that may be doing the same thing.
Well, yeah, and not only ones that are dealing with the same problems I'm dealing with, but it's very important to me to understand the various struggles that other people are dealing with. And it gives me a new perspective, especially working at the local thrift store. I interact with people from all socioeconomic status, races, classes, creeds, and you get to talk to those people, and you can hear the songs playing in your head as they're going through the stories and telling their journey. And you can really hear the connection between, I mean, lyrically, it's all the same struggles that we're all dealing with.
Sure, sure. Okay. I'm interested in kind of jumping into your backstory. You mentioned your mom, and do you have any siblings?
I have two half sisters,
Okay.
and then a half brother. My sisters are 5 and 6,
Okay.
and then my brother is 16.
Okay. Okay. And so your brother is so you have to kind of give me the breakdown here. So dad, is dad still in the picture?
He is. Me and him have kind of had a strained relationship. He's had a series of, relationships and a couple wives, and me and the stepwife or the wives never got along. So um, I was kind of always the misfit of the group.
Okay. Okay.
So I always was very, just very mother oriented, I guess you could say. So my mom's family has always been there for me, but me and my dad still communicate.
Okay. And does he live in near Hannibal or?
Yeah, he does. He's only about 10 minutes away from me, so I go and see him probably uh, once or twice a month. But I do. I live with my mom when I'm not at school. So
Gotcha. Okay. And then and so then your half brother, is that a son of your dad's or of your mom's?
son of my dad's, and
Son of
then
your
the
dad's.
two sisters are my mom's kids.
Gotcha. Okay. And you're so in the house right now where you're living at. So that's you and your two half sisters, your mom, and anyone else?
My stepdad, and then my grandparents are currently living with us.
Okay.
So they sold their house and weren't expecting it to get off the market that quick. Didn't have anything lined up afterwards, so they've been squatting here for about 2 years now.
Okay. Just visiting, right? For two
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, you mentioned school. So yeah, kind of to tell us a little bit about what was school like growing up, and were you involved with sports? Were you involved with extracurricular activities? What were you, or the arts, or what were you involved with as you were going through school?
So it's probably a lot different than it is near Chicago, but my class size graduating was around 200. Um, So our individual classes were usually about 20 kids apiece. But in third grade, I got involved in it's called the LEAP program here, and it's basically a gifted education program where kids can meet with other like-minded individuals and just kind of explore the different things that education has to offer beyond the normal curriculum. And so we got to do projects, just researching. I actually did a video on the Loch Ness Monster, which I thought was really cool at the time. But that was one thing I was really involved in. And then middle school, I really didn't do a whole lot. I got involved in um, it's called Pirate Singers, and it's kind of like show choir for eighth graders. And so I was more involved in arts in middle school. And then in high school, I did show choir, academic team, which is quiz bowl. I did finance team, and we actually won first in Missouri and got to go to nationals, which was really fun. And then I did soccer all 4 years. So
Okay, all right. And so during those, so that was all through high school, right? Through middle school and high school, you did that, and then right after high school, what'd you do after high school?
so after high school, I kind of always had this fascination with healthcare, how other people thought, how it all worked. And so I decided to go to the University of Missouri in Columbia and pursue a degree in health science with the ultimate goal of going to medical school. And then I actually have been pre-accepted to medical school there upon uh, the requirements that I keep my grade point average and get a solid score on the MCAT. But they just have a program where it helps uh, rural Missourians find access to healthcare, which is something I was really passionate about, and so that's why I chose there.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And I know that when we talked the other day, you had some of your own struggles, and obviously it sounds like there were some struggles with mom and dad. How old were you when mom and dad got divorced?
Well, actually, so my mom had me in high school, and so they had to graduate early, but they never got married. So around one, I think they split up, and then had the custody
Back and forth.
split from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And it sounds like there was some difficult times during at, at Dad's place based upon who he was with at that time and things like that. But you had mentioned that there were some other struggles that you had growing up. So and when did that all start beginning to surface?
I think it was around middle school age. So here in school, until you get to middle school, the grades are kind of just like satisfactory, unsatisfactory. And then I got to middle school and they were actually letter grades. And so from there, I noticed that I was kind of an anxious personality. Um, it really bothered me to get even 99% on a test. I'd be bummed out that I missed that one question. Um, and if I got a B, I would break down in tears and uh, kind of be an emotional wreck for a couple days. And so I noticed then that needed to find other ways to cope with it, but I just pushed it off to the side. Um, and as soon as high school hit, uh, I really didn't feel like much pressure from other people as much, but I put enough pressure on myself to where uh, anything better than or anything less than perfect was inadequate. And
Okay.
so really that started the struggles of self-doubt and lack of self-esteem when I couldn't be perfect for everybody at every point in time.
Gotcha. So thinking back when you first noticed in middle school, and I think these developmental years, right, that we kind of like we figure stuff out, right? It
Right.
and and I can relate to that. I don't remember necessarily. I remember noticing things in middle school, but not necessarily. Um, I wasn't courageous enough to ask somebody about something. I was trying to piece things together myself because I didn't
Right.
want people to know what was going on, and reveal that. So if you think back to that, noticing that you were, what it sounds like you're saying is that you were pretty concerned slash consumed with the outcome, right? Like
Correct.
what
Yeah.
was the final outcome part of it. And so what if you did get that, 95 out of 100 or got a B, if that happened, what you said you did some coping things back then. What were some of the things, the coping, how did you cope with it? I mean, obviously you were upset about it, but what things did you do to try to make that feeling of unsettledness go away?
So that's when I really turned to music right off the bat. I started in like unhealthily eating habits. I would just binge food. If I went to a buffet after something, I would go 6 or 7 plates and not feel bad about it. And really, that's like those were my main two mechanisms. But I really kind of let the eating and um, I tried to get friendships and relationships that weren't necessarily healthy, so that I felt like I was accepted by a social group, um, and that I could talk to them about not being perfect, about grades. I usually tried to pick people, sad enough, that were getting lower grades than me, so I make myself feel better. Um, and even though they weren't actually my real friends, you learn that a little bit later, but those are the main strategy I had at the time.
So like for the one, like obviously and that unfortunately is fairly common, right? To find a socially acceptable way to feel, to literally feel different. So comfort foods, foods, or just feeling satisfied is a way of distracting us off of whatever we may be thinking about. So that's pretty, for some, can work for some people. And then the idea that you were talking about is, if I if I, so to speak, are not always running with the people that are my competition as far as grade wise, but with individuals that I know that I'm going to be necessarily stronger in academically, then I don't have to look in that mirror. I don't have to look the same way. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Right.
Okay. And so then moving on to like high school and stuff like that, what things did you do as far as, like, it sounds like a lot of the activities you were in, it wasn't just like a one and done. You would have to go, go back to that class or go back to have another test or something like that. So what things did you also find yourself doing? Because it sounds like there was definitely this element of overachieving.
Yes.
Like there was this a need to overachieve, or there was never an end to it, so to speak.
Right. Well, as soon as high school hit, the amount of opportunities obviously increased from middle school. And with that, so did the ways I tried to cope with it. Um, from there, my main strategy was just to keep busy as much as possible, because I knew if I was focused on uh, a task in particular, such as my extracurricular activities or sports or something like that, then it was less time that I had alone to think and get in my own head about things, and it was less time I had to study and beat myself up that I missed a question on the practice exam or uh, didn't know how to do the homework that day.
Gotcha. Okay. So one of the coping strategies then, and again, these are all on the outside, right, are seen as, um, fairly healthy coping strategies, right? They're,
Right.
so if you're just being busy, being productive regarding doing other activities, uh, no one's going to really complain, because you're filling up your resume for colleges or whatever with these extracurricular activities.
Well, and that's the reason I think I push myself to do all those things, because the less the more people see you doing and achieving, then the less likely they are to ask you about those underlying issues, and the less likely they're to see those issues. And so I just was kind of ashamed of the fact that I felt that way about myself, um, because I've always been told to put yourself first, and that's easier said than done. So I just use that as a way to really escape from myself in a way, and really never got a chance to find out who I was until I had none of that to go to.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? So like, like anything, right? It's gonna run its course. We're only gonna be able to pull it off for so long. And sometimes for some people that thing or that way of coping lasts longer, and others it doesn't last as long. But at some point, it stops working, right? And for you, tell us a little bit about when did you notice that it stopped working,
Um,
or other people started noticing?
I would say it stopped working as soon as college happened. Um, I got to college and I didn't have an in crowd anymore. I didn't have sports to go to. I wasn't a D1 athlete. I was not a member of any organizations to start with. Um, and so really I had a blank slate, and anytime I mean, you get more free time in college, I'm sure you know, than you would in a high school setting. And so from there, the free time was a time where I could uh, inflict the mental anguish upon myself for not being perfect. Um, and so in a couple months into college, I got to my first chemistry test, um, didn't know a couple answers, and had a panic attack and passed out right there in the lecture hall. And so from there, I knew it was a problem I needed to address, but I didn't quite know the severity of the underlying problem at the time.
And so, okay, so then you knew something else was going on. Obviously, that response to that chemistry test, was now something's gotten exposed now, right? And
Yeah.
so what happened next? What happened after that?
Um, so obviously, I had to let my family know what had happened because I had to go to the doctor, and they were going to see the medical bills anyway. Um, and so I started to go to therapy at the local student-based organization there, um, and was prescribed an antidepressant. Uh, so I went to that therapy for 2 or 3 months. We get, I think, 4 visits a year, um, which I for free, and then it starts being like $100 a visit, which I feel like is really expensive. But um, so I started going to that therapy, and the response I got from the therapist at the time was, "Well, your grades are doing fine, so are you really even having a problem?" Uh, and I tried to explain to her that the grades weren't the issue. I was going to get the grades regardless if I had to stay awake till 6 in the morning if I had an 8 o'clock class. Um, but I felt so tired and groggy from having to fight the sensory awareness of uh, the pressure I was feeling all the time, and so that was the real issue I was trying to address. And I really didn't. I felt I lost hope after um, it wasn't addressed by someone I went to as a medical professional that I thought would see me unbiasedly.
And okay, so you did you see her more than 4 times, or did you see her just the 4 times?
I went the 4 times, and then she said that she didn't think I needed to go anymore because I was doing fine in school.
So she was kind of stuck on the fact that you were, by grades, you were doing above average,
Right. I was
and
performing to the standard that she had set.
right, but you wasn't really hearing that wasn't really the issue. The issue wasn't that you had a 4.0. The issue was that, well, not only was it not better than a 4.0, right? It wasn't perfect, but it was all the anguish that went into maintaining the energy around this whole aspect of needing to be um, better than.
Right.
Okay. And so, okay, so she essentially discharges you,
Yeah.
and not that it didn't take a ton for you to get into that position, anyways, right? Because it's always hard to start counseling. I always think, I always get anybody who starts counseling, I give them a ton of credit because we're asking people, as a therapist, I'm asking people to come and talk to me about stuff that they don't want to tell people that they already know, let alone now they're going to tell a stranger. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a tough deal, and so I give you a ton of credit for even doing that, and that's unfortunate that that was your initial experience. So what did you mentally do? What did you do afterwards? I mean, you're discharged now. You were hoping this person was going to understand.
Right. So I had gone to a like stress relief class also on campus. And so when I didn't have that, I just tried to use all of those stress relieving strategies and deep breathing and and listening to therapeutic music and exercising and all those things they tell you to that will help you relax. I did all those things for about uh, 8 months to a year.
Okay.
Um, and then I started getting into harder classes uh, the year after that. And then all of that kind of went out the window. Um, and then so I went to the doctor in April of my second year of college.
Okay.
Um, or no, April of first year. And I felt like my medication had stopped working.
Okay.
Um,
But at one point, you did notice some benefit to it at first when you
correct.
first. Okay.
Yeah, I had noticed my mood was completely changed. I was feeling better, worrying less, just overall more energy, more desire to do other things other than schoolwork. So I noticed a great benefit for about those first 8 months,
Sure.
and then from there I uh, was just getting down on myself again. But I didn't have the courage to go back to therapy at that point. I'd already felt defeated by my first encounter, uh, and so I reverted back to the old coping mechanisms that I'd found in high school, and by just trying to go out with friends and or sometimes I would even drive around in my car for hours on end, so I wasn't at home just thinking. Um, or where I would have to talk to my family about it.
Mm.
Um, so from there, this went on until the following August, and I had um, a lot of suicidal ideation that began. Um, it started off as maybe a once a day occurrence, nothing crazy, shouldn't be happening anyways, but I thought it was something that I would get through just like if I was sad normally. Um, but I didn't. And it got to the point where I was thinking about it constantly. Every 15 minutes, I couldn't go without um, not only the thoughts, but the images of how I would do it. What would my family think? What would I say in letters? And if you know me personally, that's just I try to be bubbly and outgoing as much as I can, and that was just completely out of the normal. Um, so I got put on a different medication because they said my previous one had I'd gained a tolerance to it. Um,
Now,
so
was that medication changed in April or was it changed in August?
it was changed in August.
Okay.
April, I went to the doctor originally, and he told me to keep trying just in case I had. We upped the dose of the previous medication just in case it was a fluke.
Sure.
Um, so in August, that was changed completely to a different medication. I let that go for a couple months. It was until like November. I really hadn't had any benefit from it. And in fact, it kind of made me feel worse. And at that point, on my way back to school, I attempted to drive my car into one of the power lines along the side of the 2-lane highway. Um, yeah.
So that was was that coming back to school after Thanksgiving or?
No, so I would come home every weekend,
Oh, okay.
see my family. All my friends came back because we're pretty close to
Okay.
Columbia anyway. So
I see. Okay. So were was this, you said the suicidal ideation started in August, started happening, started happening, and then happening more frequently.
Right.
Medication changed. Was the doctor aware of the suicidal ideation?
Uh, no.
No. Okay. So that was again what do you, in your words, why do you, what was the reason why you didn't tell the doctor?
Um, I was ashamed of it.
Okay.
I knew I shouldn't feel that way, that it was wrong. Um, but I didn't want to if I made it, if I said it out loud, then it was real.
Hmm.
Um, and so if I didn't want him knowing, I especially didn't want my family knowing.
Okay.
And I kind of, if I said it to him, I'd kind of feel obligated to tell my mom.
Sure. Sure.
So, I mean, I told him, I think eventually, like a month or two after I had originally got my medication switched, when I told him nothing was getting better. And then we finally started experimenting with medications from there.
Gotcha. Okay. It is just kind of a sidebar, real quick. It's crazy how much uh, depression lies to us, how much the mental illness aspect of it lies to us and says no one's going to understand. They're just going to be upset. They're just going to ask more questions. If I say it, then somehow it's more real than what you're already experiencing.
Right.
And so if there was a particular lie that the anxiety slash depression was saying, what was, when you think about when it was at its worst, like on that drive home that time, or drive back to Missouri, that, or drive back to Columbia to the University of Missouri, what was the, what was the lie that it was telling you?
Um, that I had already lost. That in my obsession with those thoughts that things were never going to be back to the way they were, that it had already beaten me down, and that I at that point had no worth. Not only had I underachieved, but I was at the lowest of the low as far as achievement in life if I had these thoughts. And so I think that was the biggest lie, and it really, it gets you to a point where you feel defeated, and you believe those things, um, because you're battling your own head, and like it knows your thoughts, it knows what you're gonna do next. So
Yeah. And it tells you not to tell anyone.
correct.
So
Yeah.
then you're fighting this silent battle all the time with no, because you, yeah, because I hear other people tell me that they're, it then lies, says if you tell anybody, then they won't, either one, they'll minimize, or they'll just try to make you feel better. They won't believe you, or I don't want to
Yeah.
worry them.
Yeah.
Like it gets you going every angle.
Well, the thing I got is I always thought that they wouldn't understand,
Mm.
that they would just see it as me being sad and not anything that needed to be worried about, something more like a phase. And so I didn't want to feel discredited, is I think the main reason I didn't express my feelings.
So similar to what happened when you worked with that therapist, you know, you didn't use the word discredited with that therapist, but definitely not understood for where you were at based upon the circumstances. So, and you, okay, so the fear was, is that would happen if you told other people again, or told your family or whoever.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. So then, okay, so then what happened on that drive home?
So luckily enough, it had rained the night before, and so as soon as I hit the grass, my car slid out from uh, the back end slid, and I actually didn't hit the pole. And so I sat on the road for half an hour, broken down. And my original thought was, "You're not even good enough to complete this," um, you know. And so I called my best friend. We've been friends since seventh grade. He's always kind of been the one I felt more comfortable to go to than my family. Um, and so he came and picked me up, uh, and we talked for an hour or so, and then he finally said that I needed to go home, and tell my family and actually get real help. And so at that point, I decided that I wanted to be admitted to a medical facility, and get the actual help I need with no distractions and no chance of fear without full recovery.
Sure. Okay. And so you went home and told your parents,
Yeah.
or told your mom at least, right, and stepdad. And did you go to the hospital then, or the
Yeah. I
facility
did
then?
that night. Yeah.
Okay. And so that was in November. So yeah, tell us a little bit about. Obviously, it took a ton of courage to not only call your friend, but then tell your friend everything, and then allow yourself to have the courage to go back and tell your parents and follow through with it. So that's all huge amounts of courage to be able to do that, especially under the circumstance of all the things that you've been saying of what the anxiety and depression has already, kicked the crap out of you with all the things that it does. What was your experience like in the facility? What has it been like since? What did you learn? What did you learn about Evan?
Well, initially I was pretty hesitant, even though I'd made that decision to go into the medical facility. I didn't want even the staff to think I was a crazy person. You always have that stigma. If you seek help for a mental illness, then there's something wrong with you, or you're abnormal as a person. And definitely in my experience in there, it wasn't the case. Uh, every half an hour, I believe, we had activities to do that range from going to AA, or uh, watching or playing board games, or doing bingo, or drawing crafts. And that was kind of helpful to break up the monotony of being not able to go outside. And in between those, we were able to meet with uh, a therapist and a psychiatrist as well, that would walk us through how we were feeling, how our medication was doing, our interactions with other patients. Um, but really, I learned the most about myself in talking to other individuals in the facility, how everybody in there was so different. Not people I would normally see myself associating with throughout daily life, but in telling me their stories, it all sounded so similar. Uh, different different experiences, obviously, as different people have, but the underlying feelings and thoughts behind them were all the same, regardless of the trauma that they had faced individually. Um, and so I think I learned the need for myself to just reach out and connect with people of all types and um, all groups, um, not only to share my story as I'm doing today, but just to make connections and become well versed as a person.
Mhm. Okay. And so that was sort of some of the things in the socializing and the social learning aspect of your experience there, was huge. Also, one, you weren't alone. You weren't the only one having these thoughts. They obviously, you know, had no, they had nothing to gain by telling you what you wanted to hear. I mean, they were just in the same spot you were, right? And
Right.
so that's there's a there, I, there's a level of affirmation and validation that happens when you when you see that mirror getting reflected back up at you. And so with that, so that was, how long were you in the facility?
About a week.
Okay. And then what did you do upon discharge?
Upon discharge, I immediately had, through their help, was consulted by a psychiatrist closer to me in Columbia, so that I would have resources available to me at school. Um, and then one thing I did to pass the time in there was really focus on writing. As soon as I got out of the facility, began my quest to, just get my story on paper and a way that not only that I could express myself, but to show other people that um, these feelings are real. They do control people's lives, and those people need help. Um, Maybe not through a medical facility, but at least the support of family members to overcome these challenges.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you started writing your story out. You got involved with a psychiatrist. Did you get involved with therapy upon?
I did. Actually, I was able to get uh, free therapy through that original medical facility. And so, about once a week, as I came home, I was able to go for about an hour and sit down and vent about the week's problems and how schoolwork was making me feel, how my relationships with friends were making me feel, and it really lifted a weight off my chest.
Okay. All right. So again, breaking the silence that you had previously felt like you had to carry, and the shame that went with that silence. Now you have a space in which you could then share, share what was going on. Okay. L- and so that was in November. COVID comes up, right? In this,
Right.
by the second half of your, so this would be you're in your junior year now, your third year, correct?
My second year there, but yeah, third year by credits.
Third year. Okay. So so this just happened last spring, right? Or last fall, right?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And so so then when did you come did with the virus with COVID, did that bring you back home prematurely?
It did by a couple months. I think we left school. Well, I had classes normally on a Wednesday, and they sent an email out Thursday morning that classes were done for the rest of the semester. So,
Okay.
um, so I packed my stuff up from my apartment and decided to come back home and be surrounded by other people.
Okay. Okay. So so with so did you have so you finished the semester online? Is that with the e-learning that way? Okay. So
Yeah.
it just wasn't we weren't on campus, right? Okay. So a couple questions that I have for you, and maybe this is all stuff that you've done through the counseling, and obviously you've discovered. Sounds like you've discovered some new strategies. Any idea what where why it was so important, or has been, can still continue to be? Why is it so important to be better than average, to be perfect? Where do you think that? What do you think? What's that story?
Um, I I think just growing up, I took to learning quite easily, and so my family would, give me the praise for getting the good grades and, oh, you're really going to be something someday, and I think I let that all get to my head that if I could be something, then I had to be something.
Mm.
Um, and of course I wanted that for myself too, but it became less of an ambition and more of um, something I felt forced to do.
And it sounds like the criteria was always this thing of perfection to reveal if you really were going to be something,
Right.
and anything less than perfection meant that you were going to be nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And so there's the dichotomy, right? So and I think, Evan, I think I am so appreciative that you shared in your story about this, because most people think that depression looks a certain way, right? They think anxiety looks a certain way, and they don't think it's a 4.0 student. They don't think it's a scholar student. They don't think, if many times they don't think it's that. They think overachievers achieve a lot because they can. Well, that's part of the story, but there's also a part where, well, people don't ask, so they don't know that there's more to the story,
Yeah.
right? And so if as you think now about this part of your journey, and obviously you know, is it, did I hear correctly that you've written a book?
Yes, I've written and officially published a book called A War Between the Eyes on Amazon, and its whole purpose is it goes through my journey in 3 phases, explaining how depression really is a war that you're fighting with yourself to overcome the feelings that you can't tell anybody or that you're not good enough. And so I wrote it initially for the people dealing with depression, but as I got further into the publication, I realized that that's not the only people that need to break the stigma and the silence that surrounds suicidal thoughts and mental illness in general. It's really understanding from the family and the main support group for the long-term effects that are the lifelong illnesses that include depression and anxiety.
Right. Well, and the other part that you may not have directly wrote for, you didn't, that may not have been your target audience, because it was obviously people who struggle with mental illness, the significant others of those individuals. But then hopefully there'll be some professionals, that either educators or mental health professionals or medical professionals, that will read it as well, and be informed that it doesn't always look the stereotypical way. It can come in different forms.
Right, right.
Gotcha. So if there was one thing that you would say that you've learned, having, and obviously depression, like many things, mental illness, like many things, it isn't just like you take a magic pill and everything's gone, right? Medication doesn't, well, medication may help with that, but it's also all this learned behavior that we do. And it's all these other things that we've learned, that have come with it. If there was something that you've learned so far in your journey, that if this would have never happened, you may never had this insight about yourself, what would you say that you've learned by going through, especially the stuff in the last 9 to 18 months? What would you say that you've learned about Evan going through this journey, going through hitting a bottom, and then doing what you didn't think you were going to do? What would you say that you've learned about yourself?
I would say the thing I cling to the most is that I'm stronger than I could have ever imagined to be. Um, if you would have told me uh, 12 months ago or 2 years ago that I would be able to um, overcome something like this, I don't know. I don't know if I would have believed that I could get out of that hole or tackle these issues so openly with you or with my family or with a therapist. Um, I thought for a long time that silence was the answer to, if you push your problems off, then eventually they'll go away because you're not thinking about them. But I found strength in the fact that I can tackle these challenges head on and make them a part of my life that I can accept and know that they're there and acknowledge it.
Yeah, yeah. Very good, Evan. I give you, so much credit for doing what I refer to with my clients and with my staff and just the people that know me, that you're taking on doing the work. Obviously you've always had a strong work ethic, and now what I'm hearing you say is that you're doing the work to try to really understand what's going on, and not just be busy, not just be productive and distract yourself, but actually do the work. And I think, one of the things you said earlier about being at the thrift store, and being fascinated by the people you get to interact with, and to either help or just get to know their stories. I think that's huge, to continue growing and learning that way. Continue to allow yourself to be humbled in that aspect of it, and recognizing that you're not alone.
Right.
And you never know, in that, allowing yourself to be able to interact with those people, you never know who God's going to have you interact with. It's just, and they may be there for you, or you may be there for them, or maybe it's both. So it's a pretty cool to be able to have your eyes open and being able to see that.
Right. It is for sure.
Yeah. Um, and I know from my own experiences, that idea of the lure of trying to achieve, and then there's never enough, because there's just another thing to achieve. And it's like, like going up a hill in sand, going up a sand hill, and it just, all you do is, the harder you try, the more you spin your wheels. And I would much rather be in the position where you're at right now, where you can be living it, still doing your work, still achieving, still doing what you're doing in school. I imagine you still probably get decent grades, um, but maybe but that other stuff too is critically important. So Evan, if you were going to share anything with the listeners today, what would you want to share with the listeners? Something you'd want them to take away from listening to your story and getting to know you, just a snapshot of who you are.
I would say the main thing is, uh, don't be afraid of yourself, of of having other people get down to that, the crux of the things you're feeling and who you are, because the silence doesn't help anybody, but it only lets that that inner demon get time to grow. And so whether you feel like you need to go talk to a family member once a week, whether you need to go talk to an actual therapist, whether you need to go to a mental facility and actually seek long-term help, um, anything is better than what you're dealing with right now, and the feelings you're feeling. And so getting proper help and really coming to terms with the fact that you are dealing with these things is what's key.
Nice. Evan, your book again, War Between the Eyes?
Yep, A War Between the Eyes. It's available on Amazon, um, and it's available in paperback. Here's what it looks like if anybody would
Nice.
like to see the cover. So, yep.
Nice. Now, if anybody was interested in getting a hold of you, getting in contact with you, are you on any social media sites at all?
I'm actually not. I'm not too much of a social media person.
Okay. All
But
right.
if somebody wants to contact me by email,
Okay.
I would be happy to reach out to you. My email is evan.wallace8757@gmail.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, Evan, thank you very much. And you have a fascinating story. Obviously, you are continue to do your work and continue to do your own journey. But most importantly, you have a desire to reach out to people and shatter the silence that is around these uh, factors that lead to people to be in that dark place and not have hope. And I think your story is a great message of that hope. You gotta, it's like life. We gotta wake up and do one day at a time, and keep going. And so I am glad that you have recognized that light that is within you, and continue to do the good things to let that light shine, and so it can shine on other people too. So.
All right.
Evan, thank you very much, and look forward to talking to you in the future and hearing what you do into the future. So,
All right. Thanks. I appreciate you having me on.
no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.